Hello again, everyone. My name is Mrs. Smith. Welcome back to our second RE Community Learning Project lesson. Now, this is session 2, so if you haven't yet done session 1, please go and do that session first before you continue on with this session. Today we're continuing to explore the theme of community, thinking about the different communities that we belong to, and we're going to be spending some more time investigating the different religions and looking at how they do things in community and special things that they do, say and believe to help build and live out community in their lives. Again, hopefully by the end of our 10 sessions, we'll have a bigger and better understanding about what makes community and people feel like they belong in the communities around them. Now, think back to session 1. Did any of you have a chance to go and chat to the adults in your home about maybe where they got their world views from? Maybe you had a chance to think about the communities you already belong to, those sports teams or those maybe religious groups for some of you. Today we're thinking about those different communities and what values we have because of how we feel we belong to those communities. We've got a couple of tasks to do today. So in order for us to crack on with our activities, I'm just going to share with you now the items you will need for today. So that's our theme, belonging to communities. And this is what you'll need for today. 2 pieces of paper again, lined or plain. At least 1 pen or pencil, and again, if you've got colours available, then go and get them. That would be great. Pause the video here to go and get the items you need. Fantastic. Thank you for getting those things. Now, to start us off this time, I want us to think about your own community circle. So I'm going to get you now to get one of your pieces of paper, and I want you to have a go at drawing another target board, a bit similar to our last lesson, but doesn't need to be as big. So this time it's going to have a circle in the middle and write the word me or write your name. Then I want 3 more circles around that smaller circle. So pause the video here and draw this out on your piece of paper. Now, fantastic. Now that you've drawn your circles, we're going to start filling in our own community circle. In this circle, next to the one closest to you, I would like you to write the names of the people who are most close to you. This will most likely be your best friend and your closest family members. It might be a friend that you see every day. Someone really, really close to you. Write them in that circle now. Brilliant, fantastic. Now, in this second circle, I want you to write the names of people who you are still connected with, but not as close. So this could be teachers, pupils in your class, friends from some groups you belong to, like Brownies, Scouts. Maybe names of extended family, so maybe family you don't see as much, but you still feel a little bit close to them. Pause the video here, add those names in there. Okay, brilliant. In this last circle, the one right on the outer rim, I wonder if you can work out what we're going to put there. Hopefully you've guessed it. The people that you still are connected to, but ones that you maybe don't see or connect with all the time. So this could be names of people that you meet occasionally. Pause the video here and have a go at doing that. Now, to help you out, I've drawn my own community circle. Here's mine. I'll hold it up to the screen for you. Here I am, Mrs. Smith in the middle. My closest network is Mr. Smith. Married to Mr. Smith, he looks after me very well. Then I've got Mum and Dad, who I speak to a lot. I've got my best friend, Hannah. And then I've got Emily and Jack, who are my nephew and niece. So I would count them as my very close family. and friends. In my next circle, as I said, these are friends that I'm connected with quite a bit, that they belong to some of the groups I go to, the groups I belong. So I've got some friends here, I've got Susie, Emma, Linda. They're all very good friends of mine that I speak to quite a bit. I've got some groups of friends here who I belong to a community group with, which is really quite good, and I connect with quite a bit. And then on the outside, I have my friends that I'm very still connected to, but I only see them occasionally. How does that compare to yours? Have a think. Do you need to add some names in? Pause the video here to see if you need to add anyone. Fantastic. Your community circles are looking great. Now, I wonder, has that got you thinking a little bit more about the communities that you belong to, the different groups that you feel connected to? I wonder whether some of these names might overlap with one another. For example, people that you might have written in this second circle might actually go to the same school, class, club, or religious group as the people that you have in your very close inner circle. See how your different community groups link together. Maybe draw a line between them if they're part of the same group. So I know that Mr. Smith is part of the same community group as my friends on this side. So I would get a pen and I would draw some lines to those. See if you can do that if they link up. As you do that, I wonder, do any of the people that you have written have similarities to you? Do they hold the same values as you? Do they have the same beliefs as you? I wonder, what things do you join together? Maybe you're part of the same group in school, as well as in Brownies and Scouts, as well as in maybe a Sunday school group, maybe if you go on a Sunday morning, if you belong to a church. Maybe you've got many connections. Here's something I want you to think about. What do you talk about with these friends? What are the key things that you talk about? Is it the friends that you have at a football team? Is it always about football when you see them? Or do you talk about other things? Pause the video here, complete that community circle with your line drawing, and spend some time thinking about how you truly connect with them in these different communities. Fantastic. Thank you for joining in with that activity. Now, I'm sure you've managed to find so many connections. In many of these situations from your community circle, whether it be a family situation or a group of friends, you belong in a community. That's really quite nice and comforting to hear. I wonder, how does it feel to actually belong to these groups? Now, to get us thinking about this bit more, I'm going to flip it on its side, because I wonder, here's my question to you, what happens when we feel like we don't belong? I wonder. Now, I'm going to share a little prompt with you. Go back to our screen for today. Here we go. Here's a prompt for you. What happens when you feel like that you don't belong? Your task is to write down 5 occasions when you have felt left out. Here's an example. On the playground, maybe you've tried to join in with a game. Maybe someone has, or a group of people have said, nah, we don't want you to play with us today, or you don't understand the game, so you're not playing. Maybe joining a new group. How did that, maybe recording when the time when you tried to join Scouts maybe, or a football team. Joining a new class for some of you. Did that make you feel like you didn't belong? Take some time now, pause the video and jot down those 5 occasions maybe where you haven't felt like you've belonged. Thank you. Now look at that list that you've written of those 5 occasions or scenarios where someone might feel left out. Write down now what you think might help the person who feels left out to be happier and feel like they belong. So next to each one, can you now just say what would be a good solution to each of those 5 occasions to make that person feel happier? Pause the video now to do that. Great. I'm sure you've been able to think of lots of different ways to make that person feel happier. Thank you. Now, different faiths, different religions have different bits of wise advice that they would give to people. So we're going to be thinking now of some wise advice from Christian and Muslim sacred texts. Let me pass on the screen. Here we go. Here's a list of all of them. I'm just going to move my screen out of the way just to see if that makes a difference. I'll go right up into the top and move it over. Thank you. Right, now sacred texts are super important to religious people and to religious groups. They help them learn how to live and how to feel like they belong and how to live in a community. Perfect for what we're looking at in our sessions. On the screen, I've put different wise sayings, and they all come from either the Bible or the Muslim sacred texts of the Quran or the Hadith. So I'm going to read each of them, and I want you to really think, well, how would that impact on someone who maybe doesn't feel like they belong? So we've got up here at the very top, in that purple shape, no one of you is a true believer until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. So that's been taken from the Hadith, which is the Muslim sacred text. What do you think that means for someone who feels like maybe they don't belong? I'm going to move on to this next one. I'm going to move my screen. You who believe, let not one group among you deride another group, nor insult one another. How bad it is to call each other by bad names. There's some wise advice there from the Quran. Here at the bottom, we've got one taken from the Bible. Live your life like this. Do what is just. Love what is merciful. Walk with God. Don't be proud. That's taken from the book in the Bible called Micah. When you do what is just, that means do what is right. Down at the bottom, we've got another phrase from the Bible. A generous person will prosper. If you refresh others, you will be refreshed yourself. It's taken from a wise book in the Bible called Proverbs. Then over on the left-hand side, we've got another text from the Quran. Hold fast all together to God's rope. Don't be divided among yourselves. Encourage what is right and forbid what is wrong. That's another one from a Muslim text there. And lastly, we've got another one on the left at the top from the Bible. Don't be proud, do not be proud, but be friends with those who leave, do not be proud, but be friends with those who others leave out. That's taken from another book in the Bible called Romans. Now, here's where we're going to get a bit creative. I want you to choose 2 of the wise sayings that are on the screen and have a go at drawing on one of your pieces of paper a simple image to show the main point of the quote. So choose 2. If you really want to challenge, choose one that's Christian and one that's Islam. Go for that. But choose 2 and see if you can draw the main point of the quote. Pause the video here to do your drawing now. Fantastic. I'm sure your drawings really show the main point of the quotations. We'll be using these wise advice quotations to help us in a special story situation now. Let's see how we can do. I will be reading 3 situations about a child called Amy, a child called Darren, and a child called Aisha. They all link up into the one story. We'll be thinking about how each one feels about how they belong, and in turn, how you might respond in that situation. So you really need to get your listening and thinking caps on. As I read the story, I'm going to pop some questions up on the screen, and I would like you to write down some phrases and some thoughts in answers to the questions as we go. So let's see if we can do that now. Okay, so here are the question prompts I want you to think about as I read those scenarios. So I want you to be thinking about the feelings. So maybe jot down on one of your pieces of paper some of those feeling words that each of the children might be experiencing as we go through the story. How do they feel that they belong? So I want you to consider, who or what does the child belong to? Okay, so think about the whole situation, the little bits of information that I share with you. Can you think of more than one group for each person maybe? And then wisdom. So thinking back to those lovely sayings from that wise advice from both the Bible and the Hadith, from those texts, what do you think that they might learn from reading those or listening to those? And why do you think they'd learn from those aspects? So I'm going to read the story to you now. So I'm going to keep those questions on the board, so get ready to jot down as I read the story. So first of all, we're going to think about the story of Amy. On her first day at her new school, Amy met her teacher, Mrs. Cullen. She met her at the entrance, and she was really, really nice. They went into the classroom before all the other children had arrived. She sat at a desk at the front, and no one else sat with her. As the others came in, she recognized a boy that she had seen at church, and also the girl that she had seen from the house next door. She felt much better. After taking the register, Mrs. Cullen told the class that Amy was new and asked, "Is there anyone in class today who would make Amy feel welcome and show her where everything is?" There was a long pause. It felt to Amy like the worst minute of her life. So that's Amy's scenario, the first part of the story. Have a think through those questions. Jot down some thoughts for how she feels. What groups can you think that she belongs to? What clues did I give out? What wise advice should she respond to? Here's Darren's story. Get ready to jot down some things as you listen. Darren usually enjoyed church on Sunday mornings. His group of about 10, 9 to 12-year-olds was full of his friends. And they often went to the cinema together, as well as being part of their church and learning about God together. One Sunday, sitting in church for the first part of the service, he noticed a new family. One of their children, a girl, looked about his age. When it was time to go to young church, in the church hall, the new girl came along. She was called Amy. She looked a bit shy, but it was a friendly group, and everyone said hi and made sure she felt welcomed and included in what they were doing. Okay, so that's Darren's part of the story. Again, think about maybe some of the things he joined in with, using that wisdom maybe. What did he belong to? Okay, here's the third part of the story, the Aisha's scenario. The house next door to Aisha's had been empty, but on Friday when she got home from school, she saw new people moving in. There was a mum, 2 children, and the oldest one of them was about her age. She noticed them coming in and out during the weekend, and her mum said to Aisha, "Why didn't you go and ask her if she'd like to play?" But Aisha felt too self-conscious to speak to the girl. Mum said, "She's probably in as much as need as a friend as you are. Allah loves kindness, you know." Aisha knew that, and she didn't much like being reminded of it. So just to pull that last point out from Aisha, Allah is the God that is the name for God that Muslims worship, and they would cry out to Allah in praise and worship, but they would also cry out to Allah for help. And Allah, they believe, is the one who's given them those wise advice that I shared from the Quran earlier in our lesson. So those were the stories of Amy, Darren and Aisha. Now, and let me just summarize the main points. So Amy had moved house. I think we could work that out. She was worried about starting her new school, but she had been to church and she'd recognized that boy, Darren, in her new class from there. Darren had been encouraged at church to make sure that they were welcoming and including Amy into their group, which was important. He saw Amy at school, but wasn't too sure what to do. Then there was Aisha. She lived next door to Amy in her new house. Aisha was also in Amy's class, but she also wasn't sure about what to do when the teacher asked if anyone would look after Amy on her first day. And Aisha wasn't too sure, following her mum's and Allah's advice of going and asking Amy if she wanted to play. So I want you to think about your scenario. All of these children were unsure about what to do. Now, look back at your list that you made about what to do to make sure people felt welcomed and felt like they belonged. What would you do in this situation of Amy, Darren and Aisha? I wonder. Now, when I was at school, I would always volunteer for things like looking after a new child on their first day. I would always feel proud to walk them around our school and to show them how different parts of the school would work. And I'd explain the different quirky things about the classroom and about some of the teachers. I would always love that. And I would always try to give them a big friendly smile, because a smile goes a very, very long way. Now you have the chance to write the next chapter in the story of Amy, Darren and Aisha. So here, choose one of the stories. So focus on one of the characters, either Amy, Darren or Aisha. And I want you to think about what happens next and write chapter 2 of their story. Now your chapter 2 must include or refer to one of the pieces of wise advice from the Bible, the Quran or the Hadith, those Christian and Muslim texts that we talked about. I'm going to show you them again on the next slide before you start. Now your writing must be based on one of those. Though these are wise sayings from different faiths, so let's see if you can bring them into your chapter 2 of the next story for these children. Go through the story. Here you go. So here are those wise advice from ancient texts. Look closely at them. Which one are you going to use to fit into your next chapter? So let me go through the task again. Your task is to write chapter 2 of the story of Amy, Darren or Aisha. And you are to use some of the wise advice from here. Pause the video here to write your next chapter. Brilliant writing, everyone. I hope you've all been able to write a few sentences about what happens next using some of that wise advice from the sacred texts. I decided that both Darren and Aisha offered, as both of their faiths wanted them to feel like they showed love and belonging to others. So I believe that both Darren and Aisha offered and put their hand up and said, I'll take Amy round the school. And they worked together because both of their faiths, both of their inner beliefs that we mentioned about this session and last session, and through that wise advice from the sacred text, they believed that they should be showing love and they should not be leaving anyone out and making them feel like they don't belong. Now, as we come to the end of our session, I'm just going to stop sharing now. I want us to start thinking about how we can reflect on what we're learning about belonging to these communities. So first of all, I want you to get back out your community circle. Let's see if I can find mine again. Here we go. Have a look back at your community circle. Think about what you value most about the communities that you are all part of and the connections you have. Can you see what things like kindness and welcoming people into a new community fit in to your community circle? Can you be brave like Darren or Aisha and make sure that you're welcoming others? I wonder, why not talk to the adults in your home about the important values that bring you all together into that community and how you feel that you belong? Now, to record our reflection of our learning in each lesson, we're going to use a helping hand. So really quickly, I want you to take your last piece of paper and I want you to have a go at drawing around your hand, like I've done there. So it's just literally get a pen, put your hand down, draw all the way round, and you should get a lovely hand shape like that. I want you now to pause the video and draw that hand. That's great. Good hand drawing. I'm sure yours looks better than mine. Now, I want you to choose one of the fingers. So I'm going to go for the little finger. And I want you now to write a phrase or a few words that you want to remember about belonging in community from what we've explored today. Now, over the course of the next few lessons, we'll carry on adding phrases to our helping hand. And I might even cut mine out to show a nice helping hand shape. And just to help you out, I'm going to share with you now what I've remembered from today's session. I'm going to write in here, don't leave anyone out. Make them feel included. So that's one value or important bit that I want to remember from today's learning that I've written on one of my fingers of my hand. Now, in our next session, we're going to be thinking a little bit more about building our own communities and looking at symbols of religious communities. So make sure you've filled in one of your fingers as something you want to remember to finish off our session today. Once you've done that, that will be the end of our time today. So thank you for being part of our learning today, and I shall see you next time for our session for RE Community Learning. Bye.